There it comes. You're live.
Okay. We are live.
I think that is the primary.
Welcome to today's Austin Software Cooperative Meetup. It's Wednesday, February 7th, and today is more or less an open discussion and an intro of Volt Co-op and an FAQ with any questions you might have about software cooperatives in general, why Volt Co-op is a cooperative, and anything else that you might have in mind. We may have a few folks joining us in a little while, but we can get started. Thanks for joining us. Do a quick intro of Volt Co-op and the folks here in the room, and then we welcome your intros and questions. So a little about Volt Co-op. We were founded in 2013 by Lavelle Watson and Taylor Carpenter, both here on the call. And the quote is, from Taylor, we wanted to come up with a new team-oriented style of working that emphasizes collaboration over corporate structure. I'll let Watson and Taylor on the next slide give a little bit of your background and why this was important for you. Volt Co-op offers software consultancy. We do user experience design, agile project management, front and back end development, some DevOps and telephony. We're led by 4 worker directors. We also are known as the partners, or the core members of the group. We have many aliases. And we're supported by 4 to 10 active associates, depending on our project volume. That can ramp up or go down as needed. But we have a nice group of folks who round out our skill set and help us with our client workload. The current worker directors of Volt Co-op are Watson, Taylor, myself, and Josh Smith, who may be joining us soon. Watson, you want to give just a quick intro about yourself?
Yeah, I've been a developer for 26 years plus now. Mostly corporate stuff, some startup, medical, government, defense, some other spaces, finance. Got interested in cooperatives, really the structure of cooperatives when I saw some of Richard Wolff's documentaries and saw that it was in line with a lot of the things I was thinking about as far as creating some type of fair structure. So a lot of that work was already done. So that's kind of what brought me to this place. Met up with Taylor, working together around town. So we got together and started this thing.
Cool. Taylor?
Yeah. So I've been doing software for over 20 years now, and I came into software kind of at a side angle. I was interested in psychology and people and stuff, and I was going down the medical area wanting to help people, and kind of fell into this and found a lot of the same problem solving and dealing with people and trying to get people to understand each other. Communication, I think, was my big thing, and that's when I kind of fell into what's called DevOps now, and trying to bridge the communication between different groups within a company. And everybody's end goal is to make the company work and stuff, usually. And it's trying to get them to talk. So I started doing a lot of consulting and ended up building a collective of freelancers. Code Cafe was the name. And it was a loose net group. And so a lot of my thoughts around like cooperatives was right in line. I wanted to do something more democratic and get people involved. And had been reading some, but it was nice serendipity to meet Watson and start talking about structure and how that could work and build it where other people could understand it and we could grow. That's kind of where it came. We've had to do a lot of new stuff, I think, figuring things out as we've gone along. That's me.
Cool. Awesome. Quick intro. My name's Lucina, and I've been with Bulk since 2015 as a partner and project manager. Born and raised from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and majored in cultural anthropology. And my career had many stepping stones leading me up to this point, including banking, healthcare, startups. But I really found my groove when I was able to help a team of sort of different folks working on different things and using their different individual skills to build something as a whole. And so I went through the Certified Scrum Product Owner and Scrum Master training. And with that, I care about learning about folks' strengths. So we do something called Strengths Finders here. I also care about knowing about people's Myers-Briggs personality or their cognitive functions, so that when communication may be failing or seems like it's a little bit more challenging than I thought it was going to be, then I can look at some of those things and say, oh, the way in which I was communicating is not matching the person's preferences and styles and personality traits and skills. So then I feel that's important to be self-aware of how you're presenting yourself, and then also aware of other folks so that you can meet them where they are and try to build something greater together. So, Josh Smith is not on the call. He's also a worker director at Bulk Co-op, and he's been on the team since 2014. He primarily does JavaScript. Currently working on Vue and React work. And hopefully he'll join us in just a moment.
Economics background is kind of an interesting take, the cultural anthropology and medical / DevOps, game theory and philosophy, and then you got the economics, which is its own thing.
We're a well-rounded group.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah, I'll open the floor.
Would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself, Christophe? Okay.
That's all right. We can handle that. So can just kind of jump right into some frequently asked questions that we get.
Hey, there's Josh.
Cool.
Yeah, let's do it.
And then if anything.
Hey guys.
Hi.
Hey.
And then if anything out of these questions spark any other questions, and feel free to shout out or even type it in, and we'll transcribe, no problem. So one of the questions I get a lot, and I've seen a lot, is why did Volt Co-op choose to organize as a cooperative? Co-founders here in the room.
I know I was really researching fairness because, and I thought cooperative was the most fair setup. I was researching it because I would be with different, or work with different consultancies and different startups, and I would just see people either being exploited directly or just indirectly through legal and illegal means. And I just thought, well, you know, there should be some type of structure that would reward people for contributing their best to the entity. Because I kept seeing people slowly learn that if they're not part of, if they don't have, if they're not part of the owners, or they're not allowed to vote on where the direction goes, they figure out, oh, I don't want to give my best. So if I have some side projects that I'm working on or anything like that, and that could use the resources of the main entity, I'm not gonna contribute because it's basically giving away everything. So that was a motivator for me, seeing other people go through that. So that's why I thought it was. And then, but as far as the cooperative, the whole thing of, it's very easy to think about, just basically democracy at work. It's an easy way to think about it.
Yeah. So. There's something we've been talking about more recently in Volk that's I've thought it's in alignment with my past. So trying to help people that are associates and especially partners as you're growing to grow your own career and grow your own, you know, passions and stuff. We're trying to figure out how do we do that, like how does that look, and while also growing the group's goals. That part of each person needs to be able to grow themselves was definitely in line with what I thought, because I started consulting like real before I was done with school. I was consulting and I just kept doing that. And helping other people start freelancing for me, and seeing people like break away from, like, you're really skilled and you have a lot of contributions, but someone's not hearing you maybe, or they're hearing you and taking it and you're not getting back the exploitation. But the capability to, for each person to help direct their lives by being in control, as I own my own business, even if it's a small thing, and you collaborate. I started working with a lot of individuals that ran their own business. It's usually one person, sometimes two person freelance groups. And when you can work through the communication side, then you have this passion of, this is what you were talking about just a minute ago. You have more commitment because you know this is your business and it affects you. And I kind of see the cooperative style as a way to help with doing more collaboration and building that. And also it can help, at least the idea of it, you can help people to grow in that way. I was always trying to encourage people to step out. I think it's a lot harder to say, you're really good at this. I think you can step out and be a freelancer. And you can mentor one person, but having a group that can all help, you know, is kind of like the next step and really in line for me. Do you want to?
Thanks.
Okay. Or Josh?
No comment?
No comment. Okay.
Yeah, I guess no comment yet.
Okay.
All right. Another question I see come in is related to funding. I know that there are some resources available here in Austin, nationally and internationally, that can help people fund a new cooperative. And a lot of folks are curious, how did Folk Co-op get started and how was it funded?
There's a good book on the argument of whether you need funding called Rework by the Rails people, the Basecamp people. Consultancies don't necessarily need funding, and lots of businesses, most businesses, well, one thing people say is that most businesses fail because they don't get funding, but that's after they're already going. And as far as services and consultancies, you really just, your only funding that you would need would be to handle payroll. So that only becomes a problem when you get so much work and you need to hire on and you can't handle payroll.
Yeah.
So if you just grow slowly, then you don't have that issue. But people can get loans for your own personal loans if you really want to get funding. It depends on how much you're talking. You'll run into issues of people, it's kind of paradoxical, but people don't want to loan less than $250,000, right? So you're in between max out the credit cards and it's 250. Like, why do you need that? Well, if you have a project, you got to put 20 people on the payroll. You need that just to handle a month or two worth of paying, right? So, if you need funding 250 or more, then you're going to have to do all the traditional things. So that's a very specific thing. If you need payroll, if you're talking about what we do, services, that kind of thing, you can go down the road, what they call factoring, which is basically you sell your accounts receivable to essentially a bank or a factoring company. And you can do that, and you can get your funding. We didn't need to do that. So.
I guess to add a few specific things for us, and I totally agree, it's based on what you need. So if you have a giant product or something, then maybe it has marketing, I don't know. I think there's a lot of times where you can go MVP, which is what we've seen, it helps a whole lot to wind it back, and then if it's small enough and you say, here's what I get out, then you can reduce your needs for funding. If you really need it, then okay. One area where we needed some funding was smaller things, like we needed to have a place to work. We got going enough that we're like, coffee shops were not going to be suitable for a few of the projects right when we got started, and we felt like we needed a place where we could have work cohesively, like often, to get things going. So we ended up at a co-working place, Conjuncture, really awesome place when they're around. And a couple of us self-funded on that. So I put some in, and Watson covered some of that. Just some little items like that. So those are smaller. Those are things where you go, okay, well, maybe it's like 10% of your monthly or something like that for some period of time. And then, we needed headphones. Everybody, if you're doing services like us, when you're on the phone with a customer, you need to sound good. So paying for stuff like that, items. So I think those sort of things kind of tie into the service. You just go, oh, we need to account for a few things. You don't have to think, I need to go grab everything in my savings. So do I need it now? No, we can hold off 3 months, and then we covered it out of some. Yeah, self-funding, but we kept it real minimal and moved up slowly to what we needed, and and stuff like services with we're developing software, so we run a lot of stuff on a cloud provider and do a lot of collaborative work that way, and we have a monthly bill, but we kind of only added pieces as we needed them. We stuck with one kind of to the limit until we really needed to jump and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Cool. If there are no follow-up questions, we can jump to the next point here. But we can break this plan at any time. It's an open duck. So how does Bulk Cooperative select the worker directors who have a vote and are part of the business decisions?
Well, that's like most of the things I think we're doing. It seems like as a software cooperative for sure, and a consulting service, other than attorneys, we're at the forefront on so much of what we're doing. So we've been trying to figure that out. We've had multiple iterations of this and come back and decide how that would work. The basic idea would be trying to bring someone in as an associate. So they're an independent consultant, and trying to figure out where their skills match with projects and get them on. And then ideally try to do pairing and work with them together, and start seeing that collaboration. And then as we're going through that, one thing that we've been trying to do more is moving towards mentorships as part of it. And so they may be highly skilled already in the technical area, let's say design or JavaScript development. And what they're wanting to learn maybe is stuff around how cooperative works. Democracy at work is one thing, thinking about it, but then how do you actually do it? What does it really mean when you go, I want to do this and I think it's right, but y'all disagree, and then we got to go, how does that work? And I think that kind of helps. One of the main things is getting to know, is this a good fit for them? Do they really like it? Is it kind of, some people it's not. And the other parts would be looking at stepping stones to see where they potentially have goals, so contributions to the group, and trying to figure out that how do we grow the group as its own thing that can help everyone within it, and then how do we figure out their own growth. And that's something that we've been working on, and I think we want to get really ironed out. Those are some of my thoughts. Do you have anything on that?
Yeah, people that are committed, we work with them, they work with us. They decide they like us, we decide we like them, and then we bring them on board. So it's not really
short and sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
About what you said happens with consultancies, it's just normal.
Yeah.
You bring people on, there's ways for people to be their rainmaker, they're able to bring on a lot of work and all this stuff, and they're able to, and they're committed and all this stuff, then probably they're on a fast track. If they're someone who they're really in a role of a junior and they need to be mentored and they're not really committed, then that's fine. You know, they'll just probably just be an associate.
Mm-hmm.
But if they want to come on board and they're devouring everything, yeah, that's still a fast track.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that's about it.
A lot of our associates, I know that we've known and we've worked with in the past. Some people as high as 10 years, we've had a work relationship with them,
Mm-hmm.
and we're still working with them today. And then other folks, we may reach out to our network and say, oh, we have a need for this specific area, and reach out to our network, and maybe no one in our network is available. So we have gone through the traditional, you know, posting a help wanted ad on the Slack channel of that group, and you know, asked our network, anybody, you know, fielded all the resumes and did the initial calls and went through the whole process. And we've met some really nice people in the recent past.
Yeah.
And we're still working with them today. So both approaches work. I think that knowing someone and knowing you've worked with them and knowing their work ethic and having that relationship with them for a decade or even 3 years or 5 years, that will help get people up to speed a little bit faster than meeting someone for the very first time. But if we find that we can communicate and find that the way we work, we're a fully remote team. We don't have a dedicated office. We do have a membership here at Fiber Cove where we like to reserve the conference rooms for our planning meetings and our retrospectives and any customer meetings. It's really great to have a space. For the most part, we work from our independent homes, home offices, coffee shops, wherever. And so it's great to have that flexibility and also find folks who are willing to meet you where you are, and they can either dial in on a Zoom call and have an effective planning meeting, or they don't mind coming in and being in person and having that planning meeting. And some folks, we do work with people who are not in this country, so that it works. It just works because their personality, their learning style, their communication style, it is conducive to the way in which that we're holding those meetings, the way in which that we're having those pairing sessions and working remotely. So, yeah. We're flexible, and we have folks that we've known for a long, long time, and we have folks that we've just met, and if you work well with us and you enjoy it and you have fun, you're in.
I'm glad you brought up the distributed working. That's a big deal. I think that's something that learning that whether or not people aren't always aware if they're okay with it or what all it means, or then how do you connect. And so that's been a big thing figuring out. And I think it adds something that makes us pretty different to have a cooperative plus being a distributed. It seems like a lot of the cooperatives, even the software cooperatives, will have some large core groups, even if they're kind of split out altogether. And I think it fits with philosophy, like you're saying, to be able to do that. You may have a preference, that's fine, but that being able to communicate and work remotely and figure out what you want. So if it works for you, and you're interested in collaborating, and collaborative decision making, I think, is the big one, then you could be on the fast track. So we kind of answer both. How do associates become? How do, it's kind of both.
Yep.
Maybe a little. I got a little bit to add.
Add it.
I think it's important. I mean, I guess that's how, but from an associate contractor or worker's perspective, I think it's important that like when we're talking about worker director, it's that director part as well, and it always helps to have an interest in um, the business outside of your craft. And so that's when it comes to collaborating. We're a co-op, but we're a business, and so we have to handle things like sales, marketing, PR, several things. I'm not accounting, taxes at the end of the year, and at least for us on this call, none of us are accountants, lawyers, or you know PR, and so we have to like talk about these services, know when to and to talk about them and to effectively collaborate. We have to have some level of interest. I guess like I don't think anyone really likes accounting, maybe not even accountants, but there comes a time when we need to do that, and so I just wanted to add that in. I mean, it's definitely not like a major part, but of our day to day, and but very important necessity. I feel like we often split up those tasks and collaborate as well. But it's just something to if you're interested in Volk or even starting your own co-op, you can't forget those. I guess I like to call them hygiene factors. You don't get credit for doing them, but you have to do them.
That's great, Josh. Thanks for that. I totally agree that for me, that goes back to being a collective of individual freelancers, but you're owning your own business. And if you own your business, you have to care about your business. And I don't think that changes when you're a cooperative. I think what happens is you can help each other to grow. So peer mentoring, you can distribute the load of stuff. So you go, hey, 3 of us can handle this. And if we break it up, those sort of things. And then also you can hold each other accountable in normal sense of what we're doing. And also what you said, Josh, where we go, hey, we're not the experts. Let's go find someone outside. So that's really good. Thanks for bringing that up.
Thanks. So those are just the ones that came to my mind as far as when folks are like, oh, a cooperative that does software development. What does that mean? And these are some of the questions that I hear most often. Are there any other questions that you hear related to?
What I get, or essentially, why should you want to join a co-op versus a non-co-op? And I've answered this. Essentially, it comes. I've heard it from a lot of juniors and intermediate, like developers, and essentially, I always say, look, I came in when I was junior here, I guess, maybe 3 years ago, and I think that in order for I've talked with the rest of the team about this a lot, but so in order for cooperatives to work, especially with juniors, is and just cooperatives in general, is there has to be that knowledge sharing is a necessity. You can't like I know Watson can talk about this a bit more in detail than me, but I don't have too much experience in the corporate world. Always startup got to the heart, but essentially a lot of times you'll see silos, whereas in knowledge sharing just isn't like promoted, isn't a thing. I think we really pride ourselves on that, on inter-team or special intercraft. I'm gonna make up a term, intercraft collaboration, where we're learning and we're able to ramp up quickly, hands-on on a lot of different areas, and I think that's like honestly the greatest pro for me to why someone would want to join a cooperative. that's just my 2 cents. The growth is just I don't see it being faster anywhere else.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think you're thinking interdisciplinary.
Yeah, there we go. Not intercraft. Yeah.
I think about having been in a consulting arena. You can make a consulting environment competitive where people don't share as well. So the incentives can always get messed up. But the one thing about a cooperative is, even though it's essentially a consulting arena, the one thing you don't have in a cooperative is what I would call harvesting. So people on top kind of coercing you to give your best ideas, and then they take those ideas and profit from them, whether it be through reputation or actual, monetary, that kind of thing. So you don't really get that in the flatter the org, unless you have that kind of harvest. We talk with attorneys who are with large consultancies, large law firms. They'll say, "Oh yeah, we get exploited," and all this stuff. And an attorney's exploitation compared to the support level 1 at Apple, it's no comparison. Yeah. So, but they don't see that. Everyone's in their own little bubble. But just by the nature of what we do, you end up having to share, and at some level it comes back to bite you if you just say, we're going to have 3 tiers. The top person can't get paid more than 7 times as much as the bottom person. You're going to be just hurt after a while. You have to mentor. So that's why in all consultancies, even though there can be a competitive nature where there are people who build an empire and they don't share their best practices because they don't want anyone taking their customers or clients, after a while there's a limit, and they'll see someone else doing very well because they're using what you call leverage. So basically they have a team and they're working well with the team and they're doing like a apprenticeship style relationship. They're saying, hey, those guys are making more money, and then it's just self-interest at that point. It's better to share knowledge at some level.
Yeah.
So
I think you're kind of talking about this at the start. Cooperative has those incentives to do that from the start. So if you're doing it and you're thinking, how do we want to be healthy? Well, that's going to come up early on, which means potentially you have that as an advantage over other consulting groups that may have to learn that, or they're going a lot further before they realize, oh, I need to start leveraging and mentoring stuff.
Yeah, I just look at cooperatives and consulting as the same. As far as true consulting, there's partners, maybe senior partners, maybe not. There's 3 tiers, 2 or 3 tiers. It's always like that. There's going to be outer circle, inner circle. But there isn't 15 tiers. There isn't 200 tiers, right? There's just 2 or 3. And so you still have what I get asked all the time after someone reasons about it a while, they start thinking, wait a minute, how does it all work? How do you, people start having this intuition of, if everyone that, votes on the direction of, some initiative, and it requires expertise, but you have people who don't have that expertise trying to put their input on that seems wrong or whatever, and ends up being the tiers. That's how law firms get around this type of thing, right? It's like, no, we don't have the first year out of school person being the lead on the $1 million case or $5 million case, right? So, I mean, some things are just, to me, they seem obvious, but, you know.
You've been consulting for 26 years. Yeah. I think it's interesting how much you can learn from law firms as far as like the fairness and structure when most of the view of that is like, they're just evil.
Yeah.
Anyways, but a lot of that stuff on fairness and stuff has been figured out that you have to be like a 3-tier thing. You may be here for a year or 2 years before you can go up just because of average time and stuff. Then to make partner, you have to be here. Well, not even here, actually. The more I've talked with direct people, like you have to be somewhere for 10 years. Once you hit partner, you can actually move between them and you stay at a partner level. It's showing your seniority on that. And that ties in, I think, with capability to mentor and how many of those, cross-disciplinary things have you picked up? Are you able to see stuff that's outside that's important and we need someone to do this. It can't be left behind.
Cool.
I don't know how to capture that. How does it all work in the FAQ? I do want to add that. Why should you join a co-op? I think that was a good one, Josh. But I don't know how to write up the other because that was the. But how does it really work? There's probably something there to break down. Or we just say, hey, look at the other 20 plus videos or whatever, where some of those things are broken down, including going to get expert advice, when to know and when you should do that. We have some more extensive ones. Do we have anything remaining for today?
Yeah, just a couple of. So what should we talk about next time? Our next meetup is going to be, well, I should have put that there. Our next meetup is going to be on Wednesday, March 7th. We don't have a topic determined. One idea is the Making Work Visible, Exposing Time Theft to Optimize Work and Flow. It's a book by Dominica de Grandis, and it's a book on Kanban. So limiting your work in progress, identifying and defining the 5 top time stealers and action items on how you can address them so that they go away. No, so that they don't interfere with productivity and output as a software development consultancy. But there are other ideas. That's just the one that jumped out.
Yeah, I like that. Just from the standpoint of when you're in an organic group or people are trying to peel off work that they can do, the more you have time sinks, things that steal your time, the worse, the more people have to be organized in hierarchy. But if it's all visible, like what you're saying, it's easier for people to self-organize and have more of a pull system. So possibly, I think that fits well. All those things where it allows you to be more of a sort of self-organizing group that we grab from Agile, Kanban, all these. They fit right in with these topics because that's the question that I get the most from people who they may hear about cooperatives or something, and they think, wait a minute, is there no boss? Something, they go away, and they'll come back a month. So I know that doesn't work. There's no way, right? Nothing can be self-organized. Nothing, that's what I get involved. So
that won't work.
yeah, definitely from project managers. Definitely from project
The
managers.
traditional waterfall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or actually even
Really?
regular. Yeah.
All of them?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I guess there is the whole thing of, are you willing to do I think the whole idea of pull that can be separate from Agile, I guess. And separate from
yeah.
all of it. So
Totally.
are you okay with the idea of that?
Agile just now been co-opted in the bad sense of the word, right? It just means project manager. Right. So it doesn't mean nothing. All the managers have figured out that they want to add that word.
That's true. We've seen that a lot.
Yeah.
I know Agile.
That's old. That's top 2007. They figured out, oh yeah, we want to be agile. We're going to have stand-ups. The stand-ups will be 1 hour long every day. All of that.
Oh, goodness, yeah.
I'm not doing it right.
We used all the words.
Yeah, I think that those folks are just using the words and the actions. But it really, there is an embodiment of values that comes in with what I think when I say agile. It's, you're a team player, you're autonomous, you're able to work on your own thing, you don't need someone to assign it to you. You bring up issues early and often, you visualize your work, share knowledge. All of these nice things we've been talking about. I'm one of the good ones.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Pushing wanting the whole team to know about the product and the customer so that they go, that's the goal. Not I'm typing letters on the keyboard.
Yeah.
Why am I doing this? That. Oh, I see how it connects here and here and here. Oh, I know why we're doing that over there.
All right, we can continue reading this nice book and put together something on how it helps cooperatives be self-organized.
Yeah.
And that's really, especially a cooperative that is fully remote, distributed, different time zones, no bosses, various projects, conflicting priorities, perhaps.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right.
Let's see. Well, for anyone watching this and also anyone looking at the slides, just put together some resources. The top link will go to the Austin Software Cooperative Meetup About Us page. That's where you can find 2 or maybe 3 or 4 years worth of resources of white papers and links to past recordings. The Austin Cooperative Business Association is a good resource. We are members of that, and it includes worker cooperatives like Volk. It also includes housing cooperatives, food cooperatives, and there's a thrift store here in Austin that's a cooperative. Then there's the national, the international, and there's the Tech Co-op mailing list is a pretty interesting list. It only has about 300 people on the list. And I think we've met people from that list, and we've had communications through that list. Some people are they're a co-op looking for a co-op to help develop software. So we've connected actually, I think through that list to a cooperative in Austin who was also part of the Austin Cooperative Business Association. So came full circle with that mailing list.
I think we even sent people from the mailing list that hadn't realized that company was part of it. We've done that too.
It's a good resource. Small group, but want to see it grow and thrive. And then on that mailing list, those folks wrote the Technology Freelancers Guide to Starting a Worker Cooperative. So that could be an interesting topic for a future meetup as well. If not, just a really good intro to anybody who's got questions like, how would you even do it? Here's a write-up. Yep, next meetup in March. It's always the first Wednesday of the month. If it's a holiday, we may push. We've got travel going on, we may push, but we're on for March, 7 p.m. Central. You're welcome to join our meetup group. The link here in the slides. If you'd like to continue the conversation, we've got a Slack group. You can send us an email at howell@vault.coop. Request to be added to the Slack group. We've got a channel specifically for the Software Cooperative Meetup. And you're welcome to follow us on Twitter as well. VULKCOOP is our handle.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.